Milk Minute!
Hello everyone, I'm Accountant Jonathan De Vera. I'm currently the Dean of the University of Perpetual Health System Laguna Isabela Campus in Cauayan City, Isabela. I'm also a CPA in public practice. I represent clients before the Bureau of Internal Revenue. That's the reason when I was requested to have a talk on income tax and business taxation, sabi ko, okay sa akin. Kasi ito naman yung ginagawa ko. No? So, let us describe, ano ba ang income tax? Madali lang po yan. Yan yung tax ng owner ng business. Ano ang business tax? Ito yung tax ng business itself. So, kung meron akong RTW business, yung RTW business ko will have to pay business tax. Me as the owner of the business, I have to pay income tax. Ang business tax po, dalawa. Isang value-added tax at isang percentage tax. So, kung hindi ka value-added tax, percentage tax ka. Ano po ang threshold? 3 million. Pag more than 3 million ang sales sa loob ng isang taon, benta yan ha, ito po ay value-added tax. Pag 3 million pababa, percentage tax. Pero pwede rin namang less than 3 million, pero gusto ng taxpayer ng VAT, pwede po yon. Sa income tax naman, ito po yung binabayaran natin annually on or before April 15. Ito po ay nakabase doon sa kinita ng may-ari ng negosyo. O kung ikaw naman ay empleyado, ito yung nakabase sa salaries mo. Ito po ay kinakaltas sa sweldo. Income tax po yon. Okay. Gaano kahalaga ang pagbabayad natin ng income tax sa value added tax? Napakahalaga. Meron po tayong tinatawag na lifeblood theory. Ang ibig pong sabihin nito, ito po ay parang gasolina na nagpapaandar sa isang bansa. Kung wala pong tax, hindi po tatakbo ang isang bansa, ang isang gobyerno. So saan po napupunta ito? Ito po yung mga infrastructure projects ng government, kagaya ng roads, ng bridges. Ito rin po yung sa education, yung mga classrooms. Ito rin po yung pangpasweldo sa mga public school teachers, sa mga government hospitals at pasweldo sa mga government employees. Tayo pong taxpayer ang nagpapasweldo sa kanila. Ito rin po yung mga scholarship grants ng government. Yan po yung 4Ps, kung narinig nyo yan. Ito rin po ine-extend nila. Ito rin po yung nagpapatakbo sa mga trade schools, sa mga state universities, kagaya ng Isabela State University, Cagayan State University. Ito po yung nagpapatakbo dito. Siya po ang nagpapasweldo sa mga empleyado. Ganun kahalaga ang pagbabayad ng tamang taxes. So ano po ang principle natin dito? We help each other. In other words, we do our part as taxpayer, we pay our taxes correctly, and then with the assumption that the government will spend that tax properly and accordingly. So let's do each other's part.
Senior High School on Air.
Senior High School on Air. The frontline of quality and excellent learning.
Excellent learning. You have all the best of the best.
Best of the best of the
Sa
best.
madaling umaga, handa na ba kayong matuto?
Naghanda na po.
Reading and writing.
Pagbasa at pagsusuri ng teksto tungo sa pananaliksik.
Practical research 1.
English for academic and professional purposes.
Ability and statistics.
General Biology 2.
Disciplines and ideas in applied social sciences.
Cookery and more.
Senior High School,
Best of the best. Best of the best of the best.
Chris Matthews has said that paying tax is not a punishment. It is a responsibility. This saying made me realize that, indeed, it should not be taken as a burden. It is our own way of helping our own country because taxation is the legitimate support of our government. Hence, it is very important for us all to learn the world of taxation. Today, we will be learning about income and business taxation. But before that, good morning to all our alert, benevolent and multi-talented ABM students who are listening at this very moment. Welcome to the week 4 episode of Radyo Eskwela sa Isabela on Fundamental of Accountancy, Business and Management 2. Together, Let us learn about tax as we dig about the definition of income and business taxation, including its principles and processes, and be able to explain the procedures in computing the gross taxable income and tax due. Oops! It might sound difficult, but then don't judge immediately because SDO Isabela RBI team will help you learn in the easiest way without compromising the content. So sit back, relax, and be ready. I am Ma'am Marites Sibanhan, your radio teacher. Come and join me throughout the airing of our lesson and let us all become Matax Lino. Cheer up! Have your pens and notes ready and always practice the prescribed health protocols for your own safety while learning. We are almost done with the school year. Your patience, hard work, and determination to learn despite the pandemic is much appreciated. Kudos to all of you! Last episode, we discussed the nature of a bank reconciliation statement, analyzing the effects of the identified reconciling items, and preparing a bank reconciliation statement. Do you still remember the lesson? I bet you do, learners! Let us have done the following questions to prove that you still remember the lesson. Have your pen and write down your answers. For our direction, just simply identify what is being described. Number 1, the process of comparing the bank statement received from the bank with the accounting records of the business. I repeat, it is the process of comparing the bank statement received from the bank with the accounting records of the business. Number 2, it is an example of a simple bank statement wherein the bank furnishes a copy to the depositor showing the movement of the account transactions in the bank and usually being updated every month. Again, it is an example of a simple bank statement wherein the bank furnishes a copy to the depositor showing the movement of the account transactions in the bank and usually being updated every month. For number 3, banks usually closes at 3 p.m. Because of this, the cash collected by the company at 5 p.m., for instance, that is recorded today will be reflected as deposit on the next day by the bank. What common discrepancy of figures has been described? Again, banks usually closes at 3 p.m. Because of this, the cash collected by the company at 5 p.m., for instance, that is recorded today will be reflected as deposit on the next day by the bank. What common discrepancy of figures has been described? For the fourth one, these are checks deposited but returned by the bank because the source account has insufficient balance. Again, these are checks deposited but returned by the bank because the source account has insufficient balance. And for the last item, name one method of bank reconciliation statement. I repeat, name one method of bank reconciliation statement. That's it. Now, let us check your answers. For number 1, what do you call the process of comparing the bank statement received from the bank with the accounting records of the business? It is called bank reconciliation. Again, learners, for number 1, the answer is bank reconciliation. A good start. For the second item, it is an example of a simple bank statement wherein the bank furnishes a copy to the depositor showing the movement of the account transactions in the bank and usually being updated every month. The answer is bank book. Again, it is a bank book. For our third one, we have the problem, banks usually close at 3 p.m. Because of this, The cash collected by the company at 5 p.m., for instance, that is recorded today will be reflected as a deposit on the next day by the bank. What common discrepancy of figures have been described? What do you have in mind? It is called a time log. I hope you are still getting correct answers. Keep fighting, learners. Now, let us have the fourth item. These are checks deposited but returned by the bank because the source account has insufficient balance. Clues can be heard from our problem. The answer we are looking is the NSF checks or the non-sufficient fund checks. I repeat, the answer is NSF checks or non-sufficient fund checks. And lastly, name one method of bank reconciliation statement. In this item, we have three possible answers. You are just tasked to give one. So the answer is any of the following: adjusted method, book-to-bank method, and bank-to-book method. Again, it may be any of the following: adjusted method, book-to-bank method, and bank-to-book method. That's it! To all of you, after proving yourselves as alert, benevolent, and multi-talented ABM students, remain on your seats because we are about to begin after listening to these few reminders.
Tayo na sa Radyo Eskwela. Tayo na!
Mare, narinig mo na ba ang tungkol sa online distance learning ng DepEd? Ano ba ito? Ay oo, Mare. Ang online distance learning ay isang pamamaraan kung saan maihahatid ng mga guro ang kaalaman para sa mga anak natin sa tulong ng teknolohiya gaya ng internet, laptop, computer, at cellphone. Ganun ba, Mare? Oo, Mare. Hindi magkakasama at magkakaharap ang mga estudyante at mga guro. Maaaring matuto ang mga bata sa pamamagitan ng online na pagkatuto. Isang mensahe mula sa kagawaran ng edukasyon at ng himpilang ito.
I hope you're free from distractions and you are still with me as we start digging the lesson. Our next task for today is to determine the government agencies being described according to their functions. I bet you are familiar with the different agencies we have in our government. Department of Education or DepEd and Department of Environment and Natural Resources or DENR are just some of it. Are you ready? Let us have the first one. It is the executive department of the government that is responsible for ensuring access to basic public health services by all Filipinos through the provision of quality health care, the regulation of all health services and products. I guess you already have. And you are right if you have written or answered DOH or Department of Health. This pandemic, they are indeed the frontliners. May we give a clap and salutations to their dedication and service. Let us have the second problem. It is the executive department of the government solely vested with the mandates to be the state's engineering and construction arm. And so, it is known as the DPWH. Yes, it is the Department of Public Works and Highways. Very good. And for the last one, it is the Executive Department of Government responsible for the protection of social welfare of rights of Filipinos and to promote the social development. Do you already have the answer in mind? Tell it out or write it down, because the correct answer is DSWD, or Department of Social Welfare and Development. Is it good that you know and are aware of the government agencies we have and their roles? The question now is, knowing that government agencies are involved to improve our society, where do you think they get the fund for improvements? Have you ever asked, why do we pay taxes? What's the point of taxation? Before we answer those questions, let us define first, what is tax and what is taxation? Tax, in simple words, is the compulsory contribution that people pay to the government, which is used to pay for expenses. Of the three inherent powers of the government, one of those is taxation. By definition, taxation is the ability of the government to collect taxes, which is used to fund the various projects needed by the people. The process by which our government, through the lawmakers, raises income to pay its necessary expenses. To further explain its purpose, on why do we pay for taxes? It is simply because of the following. First, it is to provide funds to support the government to improve people's general welfare. Second is managing inflation, where the government tries to lessen the impact of upcoming rising prices. And lastly, is helping to reduce the negative impacts, like when tobacco is taxed to prohibit smoking, and imported goods are taxed to secure domestic manufacturers. After knowing the purposes of taxation, it is also necessary for us to know the three basic principles of a sound tax system. Are you ready? The first principle is fiscal adequacy, where revenue should be adequate to sustain government spending. Second is theoretical justice, where taxes are fair and reasonable to the capabilities of the taxpayer to pay. And lastly is administrative feasibility, where tax legislation is enforced efficiently and effectively, preventing future complications and uncertainty on the aspect of tax-paying citizens. Have you ever read or were you informed about the reasonable distribution of income? For example, higher tax payments are imposed towards those who generate much. This can also be added along the basic principles of a sound tax system. So in the future, if I am going to ask you on which you prefer, to pay more tax or lesser, I bet you would say more tax, because that means you are having a greater source of income. Besides, you are helping the government. Now that you know the purpose of taxation, have you asked yourself if the government imposed a tax on your parents, relatives, or friends? And what type of tax is being charged on them? Do you know that there are different types of taxes imposed on different individuals? For now, let us be focused on the income and business tax. Are you still with me? First, let us define and state the process of income taxation. Income taxes is the imposition of taxes on the income of individuals derived from compensation, business trade, self-employed or practice of a profession, or from property-less deductions authorized by the law. The term gross income refers to the taxpayer's income for taxation purposes. As discussed previously, gross income refers to all income derived from whatever source. This might include fixed or variable allowances, 13-month pay if it is more than 90,000 pesos, de minimis benefits, overtime pay, hazard pay, paid vacation, and sick leave. After knowing all the different forms of gross compensation income, We will now deduct contributions that should not be part of the gross compensation income. This might include the following deductions: Social Security System or the SSS contribution for private employees and self-employed individuals, Government Service Insurance System or the GSIS for government employees, Philippine Health Insurance Corporation or the PhilHealth, Home Development Mutual Fund or the Pag-ibig, and Union Dues compensation for injuries and sickness. But then the Republic Act number 10963 or the Tax Reform Act for Acceleration and Inclusion or the TRAIN will lower personal income tax or the PIT for all taxpayers except the richest. Those with a taxable income below 250,000 will be exempt for paying PIT or the personal income tax, while the rest of taxpayers except the richest will see lower tax rates ranging from 15% to 25% since 2020. And that is all about the income tax. Did you get it, dear learners? I know you are already calculating possible income tax you might incur when you work. But you might change your mind when you hear the word business income taxation. To continue, let us have this problem. I am Mr. Norman, an accountant. I own a store and provide service to my clients. My earnings purely from my business. What type of income do I have? Do you have idea, my dear learners? I guess we have the same in mind. Yes, it is called a business income. The second type of gross income is business income. It is an income generated by an entrepreneur or by different professionals like lawyers, doctors, and accountants. They do not work as employees of other people. They were so-called self-employed individuals. Self-employed individuals who derived their income purely from business are charged with tax. Gross income can be computed through graduated income tax schedule, either itemized deductions or optional standard deduction, and 2.8% income tax on gross sales or gross receipts over 250,000 pesos for a gross sale not exceeding 3 million pesos, while graduated income tax schedule for only above 3 million pesos gross sale. In optional standard deduction or the OSD, the taxpayer may choose to deduct the OSD, which is calculated as 40% of net sales without deducting the cost of sales. Under the computation of the business income tax rate, there is another option. Suppose you do not opt to use the graduated income tax rate, the percentage tax. This option is what we call optional 8% tax, a tax of 8% charged on gross sales or gross receipts and other non-operating income of more than 250,000 pesos. So, there we have it, my dear learners, the basics of income and business taxation. Truly, that it needs knowledge to deal with taxes. As the saying goes, better endure the pain than suffer ignorance. And always remember, the beautiful thing about learning is nobody can take it away from you. If you agree, may I have a clap from you? Now that we know the process of income and business taxation, our next task is to illustrate on how to compute the gross taxable income and tax due, which is part of income tax return. Before we proceed on how to compute the gross taxable income and tax due, let's define first tax schedule and tax due. Tax schedule is gross income minus the deductions allowed by law. Taxable income is the amount on which tax is computed, while tax due is the amount of tax to be paid to the government by a taxpayer. And in order for us to compute those, let us consider our graduated tax schedule which has been effective since January 1, 2018 to December 31, 2022. If the taxable income is not over 250,000, the tax due is 0%. For over 250,000 but not over 400,000, the tax due is 20% of the excess over 250,000. For over 400,000 but not over 800,000, tax due is 30,000 plus 25% of the excess over 400,000. For over 800,000 but not over 2 million, the tax due is 130,000 plus 30% of the excess over 800,000. For over 2 million but not over 8 million, the tax due is 490,000 plus 32% of the excess over 2 million. And lastly, for over 8 million, the tax due is 2,410,000 plus 35% of the excess over 8 million. Again, that will be our basis for the computation of tax due. So, are you excited now to solve? Ready your pencils and calculators as we go. Let's have the first problem. Mrs. Andrea's payslip for a month shows the following: salary 25,000, SSS contribution of 581 pesos, 325 pesos for PhilHealth, and 100 pesos for Pag-ibig contribution. How much is the taxable income and tax due? So, our first step is to solve the taxable income by deducting all the mandatory deductions. In our case, we need to deduct the three contributions, namely SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig. If we add the total deductions, we have 1,006 pesos. So, our taxable income is 25,000 pesos minus 1,006 pesos is 23,994 pesos. So, what is the tax due? Based on the tax table, taxable income of 23,994 is not over 250,000, which means the tax due is 0. Yes, you heard it right. The tax due is 0. Therefore, Mrs. Andrea does not need to pay any tax. Did you understand it, our dear learners?
Yeah!
Very good! Let us now have the second problem. Mr. Jesus has the following information in his payslip: salary of 350,000, SSS contribution of 6,972 pesos, PhilHealth contribution of 3,900 pesos, and Pag-ibig contribution of 1,200 pesos. How much is the taxable income and tax due of Mr. Teusa? Remember that we need to determine first the taxable income by deducting all the total allowable deductions. In our second problem, we have a total of 12,072 pesos when all added. And to compute for the tax due, we have 350,000 minus 12,072 pesos, which is equivalent to 337,928 pesos. Based on our tax table, what is the equivalent tax due? taxable income of 337,928 is over 250,000 but not over 400,000. The tax due is computed as follows. We need to get the 20% from the difference of the excess of the taxable income and 250,000 pesos. So we have 337,928 pesos minus 250,000 pesos. We have 87,928 pesos. And the 20% of 87,928 pesos is 17,585.60 or 17,586 when rounded off. Remember to round it off. In computing for the taxable income or the tax due, cents are rounded off as follow. A. For less than 0.50 centavos, drop or omit the centavos. And letter B. For 0.50 centavos and above, round up to the next peso. And that concludes our lesson for today. I hope you get it easily from the definition of the different terms until the different processes and procedures in computing taxable income and tax dues. I know you are all set for a little battle of the brain. But before that, let us have a short recap of our lesson for today. Take note that tax is the compulsory contribution that people pay to the government, which is used to pay for expenses. One inherent power of the government is taxation. By definition, taxation is the ability of the government to collect taxes, which is used to fund the various projects needed by the people. The process by which our government, through our lawmakers, raises income to pay its necessary expenses. And for us to solve the tax due, we need to determine first the gross taxable income by deducting the allowable deductions, and of course, by referring to the table of graduated tax schedule. So, there we have it, my dear learners. Did you get it?
Yeah!
Okay, that's good. Then, that would also mean you are now ready to take on the challenge. Now, it is your time to shine to show what you have mastered for today's discussion. Hold your pen tight, secure your notebooks, and get ready for a short quiz. I know you are all ready for a simple battle of learning. Listen attentively to the problem, then identify what is being asked. Let us begin. For the first question, it is the income received by employees working for different companies. That is usually in the form of salaries, bonuses, and allowances. For our second question, it is called the process by which a government, through its law-making body, imposes charges on its inhabitants to raise money for public use or expenses. And for our third and fourth question, consider this problem. John started a laundry business last year. At the end of 2019, he earned a taxable income of 350,000 in total. He did not opt the 8% income tax rate. What is the tax due? Did you get it?
Yeah!
May we give a clap to ourselves, dear learners? Answers will be revealed next week. Thank you for staying with us until the end of the lesson. Once again, congratulations! In the name of our scriptwriter, Sir Junel M. Madurang, I am Ma'am Marites Sibanhan. Have a wonderful day, learners!
Patuloy ang edukasyon para sa ating henerasyon.
Sa daan ng pagkatuto ay walang may iwan.
Kaya halina sa radyo!